The lights dimmed and the massive America's Got Talent logo glowed behind the stage like a crown of destiny. The audience buzzed with excitement, laughter echoing, camera flashes bursting through the air. But then, for a brief second, everything felt still. The crowd watched as a young Filipino boy, maybe no older than 15, stepped nervously onto the grand stage. His hands trembled slightly as he clutched the microphone. His outfit, a gleaming white jumpsuit embroidered with sequins, shimmered under the bright stage lights. The slick, combed back hair, the gold-rimmed belt, and the pointed collar, it was unmistakable. He looked like a young Elvis Presley, reborn with a new spirit, a new story, and a heart full of dreams. Simon Cowell tilted his head, arms folded, wearing that usual half-curious, half-skeptical look he was famous for. Beside him, Sofia Vergara smiled brightly, nodding in encouragement. Heidi Klum whispered something to Howie Mandel, and they both chuckled. The boy didn't notice. His eyes were locked on the microphone as if it was his only friend in the world. "Hello, young man," Simon said, leaning forward. "What's your name?" The boy took a breath, his voice soft but sincere. "My name is Ethan, sir. I'm from the Philippines." The audience clapped instantly. A small smile broke across his face. "And what are you going to do for us today?" Simon continued, his tone calm but slightly testing. Ethan looked straight into Simon's eyes. "I'm going to sing an Elvis Presley song. It's a tribute to my late grandfather. He loved Elvis. He taught me how to sing his songs when I was a kid." There was a small gasp from someone in the audience. The story already touched a few hearts before a single note had been sung. "All right," Simon said, leaning back in his chair. "Let's hear it." The lights dimmed even more. A single spotlight focused on Ethan. The first soft guitar note echoed across the vast auditorium. A hauntingly familiar tune that made people instantly recognize the classic melody. Ethan closed his eyes, and for a moment, he was no longer a nervous boy on the biggest stage in the world. He was back home, in a small living room somewhere in Manila, singing beside his grandfather's old radio. His voice started low, gentle, trembling slightly. But within seconds, it grew, filling the room with power, warmth, and nostalgia. His tone had that deep, soulful resonance that Elvis fans remembered. But there was something uniquely his own. Every note carried emotion, every line told a story. The crowd fell silent. You could almost hear the heartbeat of the entire room. Simon's eyebrows lifted slightly. His usual poker face softened. There was curiosity now and then shock. As Ethan continued, the emotions swelled like a wave. His voice broke slightly during the chorus, not out of mistake but out of pure feeling. It was as if every lyric was a message to his grandfather. "I'm still singing for you." The camera cut to the audience. A woman in the front wiped tears from her eyes. A man in the back stood up, clapping softly, overwhelmed by what he was hearing. And then, when Ethan hit the final verse, he dropped to one knee, his eyes closed, his hand reaching upward toward the lights, just like Elvis used to do during his most passionate performances. The audience erupted. They could feel it, the spirit, the power, the authenticity. He finished the song with a trembling final note that seemed to echo forever. For a long, breathless moment no one moved. No one spoke. Simon's mouth was slightly open. He blinked slowly as if trying to process what had just happened. The silence was shattered by a thunderous roar from the crowd. People were standing, clapping, screaming. Some were crying. Sophia stood up first, hands over her heart. That was unbelievable," she said, her voice shaking. "You made us feel every single word." Howie leaned forward, shaking his head in disbelief. "I don't think I've ever heard someone channel Elvis like that before. And yet, you made it your own. That was magic." Heidi smiled, brushing a tear away. "It was like watching Elvis return for a moment. But more than that, it was love. You sang with love." All eyes turned to Simon. The room waited. The audience, the crew, even Ethan. They all knew that Simon's words would matter most. Simon looked at Ethan for a long time. The usual sharpness in his gaze was gone. What replaced it was something else. Respect, maybe even emotion. He exhaled slowly, leaning toward the microphone. "I've heard a lot of Elvis tributes," Simon began softly, "but this was different. It wasn't imitation. It was heart. It was connection. You didn't just sing Elvis. You reminded us why Elvis mattered." Ethan's eyes welled up. He pressed his lips together, trying not to cry. Simon smiled faintly. "And your grandfather, I'm sure he's proud right now." The audience roared again. Ethan bowed his head, tears now freely rolling down his cheeks. Then something unexpected happened. Simon stood up. The crowd gasped. Simon rarely stood. It was a silent symbol of deep respect. He looked at Ethan one more time, then reached out and slammed his hand on the golden buzzer. The sound of that golden chime filled the entire theater. The golden lights exploded from above, raining glitter and confetti down like blessings from heaven. The audience screamed louder, standing, waving their arms in joy. Ethan covered his face with both hands, unable to believe it. The emotion overwhelmed him completely. He fell to his knees, sobbing as golden confetti swirled around him. Simon smiled, his eyes glistening slightly. He clapped slowly, then leaned toward the microphone again. "You just made history, young man," he said. "You are officially the first Filipino Elvis to ever get a golden buzzer on this stage." The crowd went wild again. Heidi, Sophia and Howie ran onto the stage to hug Ethan. Sophia wrapped a golden scarf around his shoulders, whispering, "You did it." Ethan looked up toward the sky through the rain of confetti. He whispered something softly. A thank you only his heart could hear. Somewhere in that moment it felt like his grandfather was right there, smiling through the golden lights. The camera zoomed in on Simon's face. For once, the man who had seen it all was speechless. His usual words of critique were replaced by quiet admiration. He turned toward the audience and simply nodded, mouthing, "That was special." As the crew helped clear the stage, the crowd refused to stop clapping. They chanted, "Filipino Elvis! Filipino Elvis!" over and over again. It was more than a nickname now. It was a symbol of pride, of passion, of a dream that crossed oceans. Backstage, Ethan hugged his mother tightly, both of them crying with disbelief and joy. "You did it, Anak," she said softly, holding his face. "You made him proud." He nodded, still shaking, still trying to process what had happened. "I just wanted to sing for him," Ethan whispered. "That's all I wanted." The video of his performance would later go viral overnight. Millions watched as this humble Filipino boy brought the world to tears. News outlets called it the most emotional tribute in AGT history. Fans from around the globe filled the comments with love. People who had never even met him wrote how his song reminded them of their own loved ones. Simon Cowell himself shared the clip on social media, writing, "One of the most heartfelt performances I've ever seen. Elvis would be proud." Ethan's life changed forever after that night. He was invited to sing on talk shows, perform at events, and even meet musicians who had once inspired him. But no matter how big things got, he never forgot why he started. Every time he sang, he still thought of his grandfather. Of those quiet afternoons singing along to Elvis records in their small home, and how that simple love for music had carried him across the world. In every interview, he stayed humble. "I'm not trying to be Elvis," he would say. "I just want to keep his spirit alive, and share it with love." Months later, when the AGT final came around, Ethan performed again. This time, with a live orchestra behind him, wearing the same white jumpsuit, a little more confident but just as heartfelt. The camera panned across the audience, and you could see Simon smiling proudly in his chair, arms folded, eyes glowing. When the music ended, the crowd rose once again in thunderous applause. And in that moment, it was clear, this wasn't just a tribute anymore, it was history. A boy from the Philippines had done what no one thought possible. He brought Elvis back, not just through voice or costume, but through emotion, respect, and soul. And somewhere in that sea of golden lights as the final curtain fell, it felt like two voices, one from the past, one from the present, were singing together. Because legends never die. They live on in those who sing with love. And that night, under the bright stage lights of America's Got Talent, a new legend was born. The Filipino Elvis who made Simon Cowell speechless and made the world believe again.